How much do you struggle with indecisiveness? Do you get overwhelmed when someone passes you a menu? Is it really frustrating to you when you have to make a choice about what clothes to wear for a night out? Do you spend lots of time asking friends and family to give you advice? There are 5 habits that you can develop to increase your decisiveness. So you spend less time worrying and more time moving through life without spending all this anxiety about getting things wrong. So I wanted to go through those 5 habits today. Now, there's a couple reasons that people might struggle with indecisiveness. Let me go ahead and grab my presentation here. We'll get this started. First of all, some people were taught that it's actually dangerous to be wrong. So there might be people who grew up in a home environment where they were penalized for doing something that was wrong. Maybe they had parents or guardians who weren't very kind to them and criticized their decision and made them question their ability to even make a choice for themselves. Hopefully this wasn't the situation for you, but it is out there. More commonly, there are people like my oldest daughter who just were an early achiever in life, got a lot of good grades, were really given tons of compliments about how great it was, that they did things well, maybe top of their class. And when they got older in life and decisions got more complex and harder, and it wasn't as clear what the right answer was, they got gripped in paralyzation because they thought that the value in life was making the right decision or doing the right thing. And so this is another reason that as adults, we can be caught in this indecision. And then societal and cultural reasons. This is a big can of worms right here. But in general, women do find that they have a harder time making decisive choices than men. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But just know being indecisive isn't a personality trait. It is basically cultural conditioning plus some bad habits. And so what we're going over today are what habits you've developed that are supporting that lack of confidence. So in order to address this, we are going to identify and eliminate the habits that are supporting your indecisiveness. Habit number 1, embracing uncertainty. Anytime there's a decision to be made, it means there's something uncertain. And in our Stone Age brains, uncertainty is dangerous. It's a warning, it's a trigger. As early man developed, the more certain you were, then the safer you were. There was a lot of situations in life that actually were quite dangerous. But the danger of choosing the wrong kind of pizza versus the danger of leaving your cave with the right kind of spear is very, very different. Our brain senses those dangers the same. So just know that a lot of these decisions we're making right now are going to trigger that same Stone Age anxiety, but there's not actually something wrong. There's not actually a real threat. So training our brain to recognize that that uncertainty is a challenge and not a threat. There is a situation going on right now where I booked a trip to Ireland. And there's a lot of decisions that have to be happening. And it's triggering a lot of anxiety for me right now. Like, which car rental company do I go with? Where do I stay? And I feel genuine panic about this trip. And I have to keep reminding myself, it's okay. There's no wrong way to do this. You might overpay a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. And so I'm embracing uncertainty and slowly moving through this process, even though it's triggering a lot of anxiety and uncertainty for me. The choices need to be made, and it's not going to be the end of the world. Habit number 2, practice making bad decisions on purpose. If you are someone who has an irrational fear of making mistakes, it's really important to train yourself to know that mistakes happen and it's not going to be the end of the world. You're not going to lose a relationship over it most of the time or a job over it most of the time. I have an irrational fear of being late. It gives me an insane amount of anxiety. I hate being late, even just by a minute or two. So something that I can practice is maybe making a client call 2 minutes late and seeing how that goes. Does the client still talk to me? Maybe for other people, their irrational fear is hanging something on the wall in the wrong place. What if you just closed your eyes and grabbed any of the art and hung it on the wall, knowing it was going to be the wrong thing in the wrong place, and just let it sit for 2 days just to prove that it didn't end the world? So what are some areas where you're feeling irrational anxiety about making that mistake? And are there some ways you can practice proving that mistakes aren't going to destroy your world? Something that, talking about being late for things, I sometimes actually have showed up late to pick up my kids to school because I did have this anxiety about making sure they know that I love them, but can they still know that I love them if I'm 5 minutes late? Yes. So that's actually something I've been practicing a little bit, is not being completely on time everywhere and just proving to myself that it's okay. So what can you do to acknowledge that The mistakes you make are part of the process. Habit number 3, what is your need for control? Because letting go of control is magical. Now, control, when we have it, feels really, really good, but we overestimate how much control we actually have in life. And so what we do when we don't have control is we do all these little habits and behaviors to create an illusion of control. And that can actually make our anxiety even worse. An example of this is when my oldest daughter was born, the very first night she was in the hospital, she threw up while she was sleeping. And luckily I heard a little noise and I looked over and her eyes were popping out and her face was purple and there was vomit in her nose and her mouth. She was about to literally die. Jumped out of bed, got it out and she was okay. But for years after that, until she was about 3 or 4 years old, every night before I went to bed, I would walk into her bedroom and put my hand on her cheek to make sure she was still alive, as this illusion of control that I could somehow keep her alive by checking on that. It did not actually give me control. It was increasing my anxiety. I don't have control over that. There's no choice I can make that would protect her from accidentally aspirating in her sleep and dying. And as soon as I realized that this habit that I was doing of going in and checking her cheek was making me more anxious and making me feel like I had less control, I decided to cut it out and I stopped doing it. And now I sleep a lot better because I know I can't control this. The illusion can feel good in the short term, but it will reinforce your anxiety about what you actually have control over. So letting go of this need for control is really, really powerful. Think about the example of ordering pizza. A confident decision maker accepts the fact that they're helpless. And when someone asks them what kind of pizza, they might just say, pepperoni. They don't really put too much thought into it because they know it doesn't really matter. Whereas someone who needs to have control is going to put a lot of thought into that. And they're going to think, maybe if I spend more time thinking about this, I'll have a better answer and it'll be more in control and I won't make a mistake. So they'll hem and they'll haw and they'll ask other people and they might still end up with pepperoni and it didn't really even matter. So recognizing these situations where you don't have control, it's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of anxiety. Let it go. The 4th habit is stop asking for reassurance. Anytime we have a decision to be made, anxiety is natural. It's a part of the process. The anxiety is not a bad thing. When you feel this anxiety, maybe start recognizing it more as a challenge than a problem. But if you ask for reassurance, what it does is instead of addressing the decision that's to be made, you're focusing on alleviating the anxiety because you don't want to feel it. You feel like it's a bad thing and you want to get rid of it. And so you shift that to someone else. In the long run, if you continually do this and shift anxiety, it's going to make you feel less and less empowered to actually make the choice. And every time you have a choice, you'll have more and more anxiety. So this habit will really spiral quickly. I had a situation in 2015 where I moved into a house and I needed to buy all new furniture for it. And I felt a lot of anxiety about buying this furniture and I wasn't quite sure what to do. And what if I got it wrong? So I hired an interior designer and I was letting her make those choices. And you know what? She was making choices that were even less of what I would have bought for myself. So I spent a lot of time and money offloading these choices to her. And then finally I realized, you know what? I can do this. And I let her go and I did the rest of my house myself and it was fine. I did not need to offload that choice. I questioned my judgment. I questioned how much the anxiety was actually a problem and it did waste a lot of time and money. So notice if you're someone who is compulsively asking other people to make choices for you, or if you know someone who is asking you to make choices. I was in a restaurant one time and someone wanted me to pick the food for them. They got really overwhelmed by the menu and they were feeling a lot of anxiety. And they're like, just pick for me. And I didn't do it because I knew that that was going to reinforce their desire to not deal with anxiety. And so I was like, no, there's no wrong choice here. Pick anything you want off the menu. They actually got really upset by it. They almost even started crying because this person had been faced with situations in the past where other people had taken away their confidence and taken away their ability to know they could make a choice like that. And the only way we can help people like that is to give it back to them and let them know it's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. You've got this. You can make this decision. So the better you're getting at tolerating this short-term anxiety, the better you're going to be at making your decisions and not seeing the anxiety again as a threat, but seeing it as that challenge. Habit number 5, practice micro decisiveness. I talked about this Ireland trip, right? The reason I'm feeling a lot of anxiety is because I see the Ireland trip as one big decision that I have to make. Now, you can usually break decisions down into micro decisions. So, for example, go ahead and brainstorm a bunch of different decisions that you make on a regular basis. Some of these decisions are somewhat easy to make. Some are pretty easy, some are somewhat difficult, and some are very difficult. All of them might be triggering the same anxiety in you, but don't be tricked. There are different levels of appropriate anxiety for this, even though your brain is triggering for every single one of them. So commit, after you've done this, to making a decisive decision, maybe starting in the very easy category. And then once you've been practicing making very easy decisions for about a week, start making pretty easy decisions for a week. When I'm thinking about this Ireland trip, what I'm going to do versus say, I need to plan my Ireland trip is say, hey, I'm going to break it down into small decisions. Decision number 1, the plane tickets, the dates, we're going to get those. Decision 2, where are the places I want to go? And writing out some of those places. Decision 3, what hotels do I want to stay in those places? Decision 4, what rental car company do I want to get? And then breaking it down, it becomes a lot more manageable versus trying to think about the one big decision. So these are just some ideas of the habits that might be in your way for feeling like you can make confident decisions. The biggest thing, again, are embracing uncertainty wholeheartedly, making some bad decisions on purpose. Let me stop this screen share. Letting go of your need for control, stop asking for a reassurance, and getting better at making micro decisions. There is a lot of really good information on this topic. The information I went through today was from clinical psychologist Nick Wingnall, who did a really good overview of this, and really practices just making sure people know all of these habits, they're really just that. It's just a habit. It's not who you are. It's not who you're destined to be. We can start changing our habits, changing their outcomes with them. Also, in the description, you're going to find a link to the worksheet that goes along with this lesson. This worksheet is going to help you identify which of these habits that you're struggling with and start giving you some solutions that you can start workshopping today to start moving through them. So go ahead and check the comments, click the link, and do the worksheet to help you start moving towards this on purpose. So I hope you guys go out today and make some fun mistakes, make them on purpose, laugh at them, realize that you didn't die when it happened. It's really fun to start playing around with this idea and realizing that these things that your brain are going to tell you are going to kill you actually aren't. It's a lot of low stakes stuff happening out there. Save the real time and attention and worry for things that maybe are a little higher stakes that you do have some control over, but most of them you don't, and that's okay. My name is Sarah Starr. I offer private and group coaching for healthy habits transformation. You can find more information at sarahstarcoaching.com. I would love to hear any comments you have in the section or any areas that you feel like has been an area for you with anxiety, and I'll give you some feedback on that as well. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.